topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Illinois is one of the greatest states in the United States. Welcome to 16 years of Ask the Experts. Yeah, 16 years. Unbelievable. But we have a great show for you this afternoon. Such an important topic. We're going to be talking about tax relief, and we're going to be talking about bankruptcy. And I got to tell you, we have our experts been with us for several years now, and we get so many letters complimenting us on this show. In fact, we actually got 2 letters from a company that is a competing company, both of them national companies, who saw attorney Kevin Benjamin's show and wanted a show like this. So you know you're doing something right, but Kevin's got just such a great way of breaking things down. And we break the show. The first half we do on IRS, and the second half we do on bankruptcy. When you call Kevin's office, please tell him that you heard it on the Ask the Expert show. So let me introduce you, probably one of the finest attorneys in the state of Illinois when it comes to tax relief or bankruptcy. Let me introduce to you our long-running expert attorney, Kevin Benjamin. Good afternoon, buddy.
Good afternoon. How are you?
We're doing good. People love the way you break things down, Kevin. And I just told Kevin, I'm just getting over COVID again, and sometimes it makes it hard to have a long conversation. But I told him how the letters that we get, love his stories. And, you know, a lot of people can relate and put themselves in that position. But first, before we get started, Kevin, tell people about your firm.
Well, I own Benjamin Legal Services and a company called Noble Tax Relief. Noble Tax Relief just basically does IRS tax resolution. Benjamin Legal Services actually does the same thing because it's me. But we also do law, bankruptcy, Chapter 7, Chapter 13, Chapter 11, debt restructuring, workouts, litigation, foreclosure issues, help people save their homes and basically get out of debt and, stop levies and liens from the government and resolve taxes.
Kevin, did you start off in bankruptcy and then it became also doing tax relief, or did you kind of do both at the same time?
I started out in bankruptcy, and then, when bankruptcy, people have debts. Oftentimes they have debts with the IRS or the state agencies, or sometimes property taxes, which is not resolution. But so I've been dealing with IRS debt from day one. So sometimes taxes can be dischargeable in bankruptcy, sometimes they're not. So when I started out, you file cases, and the IRS always sends you a notice. They honor the automatic stay, and the case is over. They're happy to talk about a resolution. So sometimes it would be dischargeable, nothing to talk about, or maybe partially. So then we started just resolving, taxes that way. I mean, at one point I did debt consolidation, that kind of stuff too, debt settlements, It's very similar. But bankruptcy, the way you analyze a case in assets and liabilities and documentation is very similar with resolving tax issues with the IRS. So I started out in bankruptcy, but and it was mostly bankruptcy at the time, but there was always IRS issues. So we were always doing that as well.
It's amazing some of the terminology has fallen off. I've been doing this for so long. I remember bankruptcy attorneys in other states that we did. There was short sale, that was one of them,
Yeah.
and the other one would be, I guess, I forgot the term that was used. It wasn't bankruptcy, but you would be kind of redoing your loan. I forgot what that was called.
Loan
And
modification.
yeah, loan modification. Thank you,
There's
Ken.
always the scam of a decade or a scam of whatever.
Yes.
I mean, there's not always scam, but like for example, there's all these debt consolidation companies, the national. They can't do anything for you, and they don't. Okay, I can't tell you how many. I've never seen a debt consolidation company actually help anybody. They help
But
themselves.
those were two big terms, though, right?
Yeah, because that's the term of
Yes.
purpose to use. People go to cocktail parties and like to talk to their friends, and everyone says, "Oh, don't do this."
Right.
Everyone has advice, but they don't know what they're talking about. Or they'll say, "Don't
Right.
bankruptcy,
Exactly.
settle your debt." Well, great. How much money you got to settle with? None. Okay, then how are you settling? You know what I'm saying? And by the way, if you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 creditors and you settle with one or two and don't settle with the other ones, how does that help you? And then that money's
Right.
gone. So, and debt consolidation
That was
doesn't
a
work.
big scam, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
I mean, there's a Chapter 13 is a court-ordered bill consolidation, a court-ordered debt consolidation. And you pay your
Right.
credit cards basically no interest over 3 to 5 years, and sometimes you pay them less than sometimes pennies on the dollar. But then again, sometimes you just don't even need to do that. Sometimes the first step to getting your credit fixed is just to get out of debt. You're better off filing bankruptcy. You don't get any brownie points for bill consolidation. It's still reporting late on your credit report, but it's always currently reporting. With bankruptcy, oftentimes your credit score goes up. You're out of debt. It's your debt to income ratio is lower. Your credit score is your debt to income ratio, your credit utilization, your payment history. It's all kinds of different factors. And by the way, there's different credit scores, whether you're applying for a loan, for a mortgage, or for a car. It's all kind of and they don't even want to give you the magic formula. And by the way, which formula, which report, which agency are they using? Everyone has a different scoring thing.
Right.
Bottom line is they don't want you to have A1 credit. They don't want you to have bad credit. So they want you financeable, but they want you with the higher interest rates. But debt relief is debt relief. You get credit cards, you're going 30, 40, sometimes more percent rate, or these payday loans. Oh my God. You're on the treadmill for forever.
Yes.
You're never going to get anything, get anywhere. And no one's giving you any brownie points for being stupid and just pay. I mean, sometimes people pay more on interest than they even realize. Their monthly payment, it's you're making a monthly payment and you're getting more in debt because the interest is more than your payment. And it wasn't until like several years ago the credit card companies always tried to hide that fact. Everyone looks at the credit card statement. You have all this debt. Oh, but it's only $100 a month, right? Okay, but it's going to be 1,000 years before you're out of debt.
Yeah. Right.
So people don't get that. It's like going to the used car salesman, and it's like how much is this car? Well, how much you want for your payment?
Yes.
And because people that's how they think, right? When I get buy a car, I get pissed about that because I know what they're doing. I want how much the
Right.
car costs. But a lot of people find out
Exactly.
what's my payment, and I can't even tell you how many people call me. I'm doing a case or giving them a consultation. Oh, I don't owe that much money. I only borrow. It just happened just last week. Oh, it's $36,000 on the car. There's no way. I said, wait a second. I got the paperwork now. You just gave me the finance papers. You just borrowed basically that like a year ago. So you actually owe now it's like 40. It's called interest. I was making payments
Yes.
a year, but it's not going to principal. You're paying 18 point, hers was 18 or 20 something percent rate. It's like, what do you think? Think it's just going to pay down your loan? So it doesn't work that way.
Kevin, I got to bring this up because I got a letter a couple weeks ago. You probably know this, but there are a lot of these national companies
Yeah.
that do these advertisements for tax relief,
Mhm.
and they make a lot of promises what they can do for you. But when you go to the Google reviews and you start reading, so many people paid whatever the fee was, but then they never heard from them again. And they'd call and leave messages, and no one would return calls. Now, I know you've got to be patient with this, but here's people that just want
There's no being
what's
patient.
going on,
They're not
and
doing
they
anything.
can't even get a phone call.
Right.
So, can you touch on
Sure.
that?
Well, yeah, sure. There's the national tax relief agencies, and then there's the national debt consolidation companies or bill consolidation companies. They're all the same. They all got a fake name, right? No one's name's on the door. Um, and what they do is when they start out, they may even have a better business bureau rating because it takes a while before all the complaints come in. And then eventually they just change their name and open up again under a different name. They're just call centers. They're calling. People aren't pounding the national airwaves and doing like huge volumes, spending millions on marketing for nothing, right? So you're talking to a call center. They tell you whatever you want to hear, and they get your credit card, debit card, and they get you signed up, and they give you all the BS. We have our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents,
Yes.
CPAs. They don't have a team of anything. Okay. And same on the bill consolidation. They say, our lawyers will. No, you don't have lawyers. They advertise and like Craigslist, whatever, say, hey, we're ABC debt consolidation looking for local attorneys to help. When they get sued, you're not doing anything. The bill consolidation companies can't do anything. Creditors are going to sue you, and that's it. So it's the same thing. There's those call centers again, promising you this, that, and the other thing. The tax resolutions ones, they're all offering compromises. Most people don't even qualify for that. They just advertise settle for pennies on the dollar, but that's not how you negotiate with the IRS. You negotiate for the reasonable collection potential, which is your assets and your income, and depending if you're doing a offering compromise or installment agreement or partial pay installment agreement. And there's discounts, and there's that's the negotiation, and you arrive at a figure. So if the figure is 10 grand, and you owe 10 grand, you're paying 100 cents on the dollar. If you owe 100,000, it's 10 cents on the dollar. It's still 10 grand. And if you owe $1 million, it's a penny on the dollar, and it's still 10 grand. So that's how you get the higher settlements. Not just like you don't call the IRS saying, "Hey, I'm a lawyer. Let's start talking. I'm offering you 20 cents." It doesn't work like that. It's paperwork, and you got to show what you have and what you can't. And there's IRS standards on expenses. Maybe you can get a bigger expense. Something happens. Maybe they're arguing. You're over, or maybe you're dissipating assets, giving them away to your family, or something. All kinds of things. But they don't. They just you call that 800 number, and they don't ask you any questions. They just say, "Oh yeah, we can get it done for you," but you can't. And then who's handling the file, right? So when they got a big turnover ratio, because that's why people are calling back, because people are quitting when they see it's all BS. So I get a lot of.
Is that the reason why?
I would imagine so. I mean, there's a high turnover, right? So people,
Yes.
you're getting burnt out on the call center, and someone's got to be assigned a file, and they probably see all this chaos, right? Who's doing what, right? So
Right.
and same on the debt consolidation. You're just calling people. I mean, there was lawyers even in Chicago years ago doing debt consolidation. First of all, do it like an attorney then. You know what I'm saying? Like a legal matter, like a loan mod should be as an attorney or something, or the tax thing as an attorney. But they all want to do these, like the loan mod scams. Just go, we're attorney based, attorney owned, attorney model. What does that mean? You're a lawyer or you're not.
Yeah.
You act as a lawyer or you don't, right? So you have these guys that were doing this, and they got disbarred. Well, they got suspended for a couple of years. It took a while though, and they were doing different states, and all the money was going to them. You got the fees, and you have to get the percentage. Nothing was getting settled, and they had a problem.
Well, let me ask you, do you think that they mostly have, and I'm not putting down enrolled agents, but you're an attorney. So what's the difference in an attorney and an enrolled agent?
Well, so to represent somebody, unless you're a family member, to represent somebody before the IRS, you have to be an attorney or a CPA, right? Those are your degrees. So or they have this thing called enrolled agent. So if you're not a CPA or a lawyer, you could take classes and a training. It could be over a year to get it. You know what I'm saying? And you basically pass. There's a three-part test, 3 sections of a IRS exam, and you pass all 3, even if you're not an attorney or enrolled agent, or if you are, you can get that degree also. Then it allows you to represent with the IRS. The IRS just wants a professional who's qualified to know what they're doing to help get the thing resolved. They would rather you have a professional, not just a professional, but someone knows what they're doing, or someone trained in the area, so they could actually, help, resolve issues instead of dealing with someone directly. Everyone's afraid of the IRS anyway. So an enrolled agent is someone who studies and gets passes those 3 parts of the test, and then they qualify to get your CAF number and you're registered basically to negotiate with the IRS.
So tell people how your firm does it different. I call you up, you're going to actually, and I guess you do some by Zoom now too, which is.
Yeah, well, basically you're going to be talking to me. You could.
And how do you decide up front that you can help them?
Well, I talk to them, first of all.
No, I understand that.
I ask
you have, is it usually take like an hour?
Oh, no. Well, first of all, everybody can be helped, right? It's a matter of, some people have misconceptions, or they're at some cocktail party and this guy said this and that, or their cousin did this.
Right.
And they're all smart people. They're all on Google knowing something, or these Google attorneys, or all this crap. Someone, and I love when people say, well, do it. Someone else told me that. So I should do it that way because the idiot who told you, come on, So oftentimes there's more than one option. And my job is, what are your options, the pros and cons of each, whether it's a legal matter or tax matter, or sometimes both. You maybe you want to resolve the IRS issue. You don't want to file bankruptcy. But when I analyze everything, I'll tell you if you qualify to discharge some debt. I'm not telling you to file bankruptcy, but it's up to you. I have clients right now that can get out of hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt in bankruptcy, but there's also other issues why they're not filing it. You know what I'm saying? Equity issues and some other things. And I'm not advising them to file that. Okay. But you got to know what tax years are owed. When was it filed? When was it assessed? So what's the CSED, the collection statute expiration date, the assessment date, there's other expiration dates, the BK dischargeability dates, penalty abatement dates, or possibilities. So you got to analyze the whole file to see what's going on, so you could work through your process. Then you could analyze them for a legal matter, or possible bankruptcy, but could be 7, 13, 11, or for offer and compromise, or installment agreement, or what they call partial pay installment agreement. And there's different streamlines, and there's subcategories of those. There's some other resolution matters, CNC, currently non-collectible, effective tax administration, hardship, but that's unusual. And by the way, currently not collectible, this means currently not collectible. That means for up to 2 years, not 2 years automatically. Up to 2 years, they may just back off, and you got to show a severe hardship, like collecting, you can't feed your family, or it's really causing a hardship. And they'll back off and mark their file, but they're going to check every few months, maybe every 6 months, to see has anything changed. I've had people calling me, well, I'm currently not, well, you were currently not collectible, but now you're not. Now you're collectible. Right. That doesn't mean they're going away forever. They just gave you a break, a little pause. That's all. No, it doesn't solve the issue. And also, like, just trying to pretend like you don't work, and like, oh, I don't work. Okay, you got 300,000 assets, equity in your house. You don't qualify for. I'm sorry. I don't care what someone told you or online. Though a partial pay installment agreement maybe do qualify, because the equity won't matter. So there's different things. There's also household income, even if you're the non-filings or your spouse may not be liable. But maybe it's a joint return. Maybe there's household income. So, and who's liable, who's not, and then, is it a tax fund recovery issue? Like maybe you're self-employed, but you weren't paying the employment taxes. There's different kinds of taxes that you could owe. We could resolve anything. I'm also a member of the U.S. Tax Court for years, and only lawyers who are members of the U.S. Tax Court could actually represent somebody in tax court, not CPAs or enrolled agents. There is a limited thing where someone could actually, I think there's study a certain amount of time and qualify to do the tax court. Doesn't make you a lawyer though. But otherwise, generally, it's just so we do like resolution. I could do the appeals. We could do, tax court for you. I mean, litigation, audit defense, whatever you need, because we are attorneys. I have people getting sued in federal court, U.S. District Court on tax issues, right? So it's a tax resolution matter, but it's also a legal matter. You got to file an appearance, and now you're in federal court, right? So, it does help to be a lawyer. And to answer your question more specifically, the difference with me, you're talking to me basically. So I'll understand what's going on, right?
Right.
And then, I get an overview usually, and sometimes the client or prospect doesn't even really know. Well, what's because they're not opening the mail, they don't really know. So I may have to get a copy of the IRS file, but there's also a detailed questionnaire I give you eventually, not necessarily on the phone, but certain documents I'll look at your IRS letters. I'll pull some transcripts. I'll get a copy of the IRS file, give you a questionnaire, whether it's a financial matter or a tax matter, so that I have information, right? And then, because before, we don't just propose things to the IRS, right? We do our homework with you first to make sure, what do you qualify for and what options, and maybe it's more than one, which one are we going to present? And then if we're presenting an offer, whether it's installment agreement or even a partial pay installment agreement or offering compromise, we want to know, there's could be a range of what I think is acceptable, right? So are we being aggressive? Are we being conservative? We'll discuss that with you. And then where may the IRS object? So it's like being a lawyer, preparing for a trial, anticipate objections and issues and stuff like that. So, excuse me. And that's how you negotiate.
Kevin, with the internet, everybody is an expert. So
Right.
they call your office up and trying to tell you about the laws that you actually really know. How do you work with potential clients like that have, they hear this pennies on the dollar, $1 million I had to pay at $3.
Yeah.
How do you deal with potential clients?
I see these guys
like
coming
that?
a mile away. I mean, they'll get on the phone. Someone a couple of weeks ago, nice guy, gets on, just starts rambling, which I hate, right? He's being sued. He's already in court. And he's not a lawyer, but he's representing himself, And he knows all the statutes. The judge are dismissed, but the judge was wrong. And you hear about this statute, you hear about that. I'm like, what, are you giving me a quiz? I mean, what are you calling me for? You're so smart, right? What do you need me for? Then he's rambling. And I just told him he's wrong. But I'm not, you're not a client. I'm giving you my time not to argue with you. It was giving you a consultation. And I would have terminated that earlier, but he wasn't being wasn't that much of an issue. But I can only give him so much time. And so he keeps talking about this and this. And I even gave him some tips on what to do. He's like, oh. And then he's like, so blah, blah, blah. And then, sue this. So tell me, so what can you do for me? And I said, well, nothing. I don't want to represent you. Are you kidding me? You call me up on a phone. I'm taking my time. You're rambling how smart you are. And then you're like, like doing me a favor. Now I'm going to be like being interviewed. Like, oh, hire me. Like the last client I want. And then of course he didn't even have money. And he's like, oh, I just want to hire you, maybe to advise me and just go to court. What am I, some schmuck? You think I'm just going to go to a court for you? First of all, I can't do that. It's ethically, once I file an appearance, I'm the attorney. and I'm not a
Right.
puppet. I represent you, or I don't. And ethically, lawyers do the lawyering, clients do the clienting, which means on area, and this is the ethics rules, on areas of legal procedure or legal matters. That's my call, right? Settlement or step by step, it's your call. But you don't tell me how to practice, right? So he's like, I just, he actually told me yesterday, oh yeah, I understand. But I'm like, but that's just it happens all the time. You know what I'm saying? Someone called me an hour ago.
Yes.
Babbling about somebody's arrested his wife and she filed a tax return and 2024, is she allowed to file? Like, what's your question? Is she allowed to file
Yes.
a return? Of course, because she's arrested. I don't. Well, how could she file? What do you mean? How could she file? I mean, it's like, is she in prison? I mean, who did a return? I didn't do a return. Why are you calling me? What I'm saying? So it's less like, I don't know. I got the craziest. But I mean, I take the phone call, but I'm just like, I don't. Maybe you're calling someone else. Do I need a lawyer? He said. I said, well, you don't need me.
Kevin, the nice thing is when someone secures your services, they no longer have to talk to the IRS anymore. And you've taught me that's why that's so important, because you could say the wrong thing to the IRS agent, could get you into a lot more trouble than you're in.
Yeah, I mean, you could be your own lawyer, your own plumber, your own dentist if you want to pull your own teeth out. But get a professional. You know what I'm saying? I mean, first of all, especially on a legal matter or an IRS matter, which is kind of like a legal matter, why would you want to represent yourself? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I have people,
right.
They call the IRS directly, or they go on the website and I just did it myself. Well, great. So why are you calling me? Well, it's not going so well. Of course. So you call the IRS and they said that you could just make payments. I got someone right now making payments for 10 years. I said, but it's not an installment agreement. They're just taking payments. I mean, where's the installment agreement?
Right.
They don't have it because like you don't know where. So I did the analysis. I said, it's going to this tax year and that tax year. And actually, I just got a detailed response, really detailed response from my client today. Because she's trying to figure out where all her money was going before she hired me, at least before she hired me. And it's going to interest for the IRS. That's where it's going. But because she didn't have an agreement, right? The IRS just says make payments.
Right.
So I mean, I've talked to revenue officers and agents. They said, well, you can make a payment. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Okay, I want to submit a resolution, and have an agreed, an agreement in writing, of what's going on. So otherwise, there's nothing there. The IRS is not your friend. When someone says, well, they just told me I could do this, and then I mention offering compromise to somebody, and they're like, they didn't mention that on the phone to you, because they're not your friend, they're the adversary. And why are you asking them? Even as a lawyer, do a lot of foreclosure stuff. People call, the bank's doing this and that. Then I represent them, and it's like, oh, well, I called the bank, and the bank said this. The bank said you didn't do this. Oh, the bank said, oh, the one who's taking your house. Oh, okay. I didn't do something. Okay, sure. You know what I'm saying? I mean, who's your lawyer? You're the lender. You know what I'm saying? So it's just strange. It's got to control the situation. Everyone's stressed out. In my business, bankruptcy, debts, IRS coming after you, people, money troubles, it's tax issues. People got kids, college bills, mortgages, there's a lot of stress on people. So, and it gets stressful for me sometimes too, because everyone's stressed and, I have a lot of work.
Let me, Roy in Chicago, thank you for such a great show. I just missed my first payment to the IRS. Will they give me time to make that payment, or will they wipe my entire deal off?
Well, I don't know what your deal is. I need more facts. Is this an installment agreement, a partial pay installment agreement, or are you making voluntary?
It's an installment agreement.
Okay, is it in writing? You got it done? because you start missing payments,
Yes,
they can default you, But then you could do another one. I mean, it's not like they're going to come arrest you. You know what I'm saying? I have a call at 5:00. Someone finally just hired me, and he's like, "What do we do?" Okay, just retained me like the other day. Well, we got to talk. He's like, "Well, my first payment, I just found this out a couple hours ago. My first payment to the IRS is due on the 18th. Like, well, what payment? Do you have something going on?" And so I got to find out what this guy signed or was doing. But if you're missing a payment, why? Maybe the payment is too high. Who did the installment agreement for you? You just called the IRS or went on the website and put in some numbers, and they just said pay. So it sounds like you can't afford that, and maybe it's not properly analyzed, because I don't think anybody represented you from what it sounds like in that question. So it's not a matter of are they going to default you or not. You can't afford it. Just redo it. Call me. Call me. You're in Chicago. The cost is free. If you're in Chicago, you can even come see.
So we're running your phone number, but most of the people are listening on iHeart or W4CY. Give people your phone number.
Sure. 312-853-3100. That's 312-853-3100. You just go on the website benjaminlaw.com or nobletaxrelief.com. You could actually, there's a link to my Calendly. You can get on my schedule. All kinds of ways. The phone numbers, emails, the whole thing. But the website's benjaminlaw.com or nobletaxrelief.com, or just call the 312-853-3100. And there's ways to schedule with me, and we'll set up a time. It could be in person, it could be phone, it could be Zoom. We'll block out some time, and sometimes maybe it's more than one meeting. Sometimes initially, like if someone calls, I try to I can't stop everyone's problem on a quick call, and just because you call me like in 5 minutes, if I take the call doesn't mean I'm got an hour just to start saving your thing. But I'll calm someone down, get a couple of basics, maybe say, okay, I need this document. What time later are you free? What time tomorrow are you free? And we'll set some time up and actually look at things. Just 2 days ago, a typical example, a lady called me in Chicago, talked to her again yesterday, she's following up, and she's got all these IRS, this and that, levies or liens. She doesn't know the difference, but she had the paperwork on her. She says, okay, why don't you just get it? Send it to me. I'll read it,
right.
And then we'll set up either a call or I think she wanted to come in. So talked to her yesterday. She still didn't get to it yet. So it's hard for me to answer people's questions when they don't know what's going on, or even when they say a letter said something, then I see it and it doesn't even say that. You know what I'm saying? So I have a guy right now he's hiring me on a Chapter 13, and he told me he's wiring me money a couple of days ago, the retainer, and then he didn't. And he called today like, hey, here's what happened. That's fine, And then he's like, but I knew, I was in the middle of something, right? The reception mentioned his name, and it was a quick. I know it's going to be a quick thing, so but then once they get me on the phone, supposed to babble about the bank and lawsuits and this and that. I'm like, dude, we already talked about this, and you haven't even hired me yet. And the answer is probably no, because I don't even believe what you're saying, And but also I told him if it was to do it, what I would need and how it would work. And the way I would solve it is not by a 10 or 30-second phone call where you're just babbling and rambling. So then that happens, and then what's the resolution? What, are you kidding me? In 10 seconds, just give you without even know the facts, especially when someone's just babbling. Or I love when they call, one called a couple of weeks ago, and she's actually nice. She didn't hire me because she just can't afford it. I'm kind of helping her do one on her own a little bit. A little bit. I'm not doing the work. But she kept calling and the IRS, the false levy or the fraud. And no, the IRS is not, fraudulently charging you back $30,000.
Right.
Right away I say, I bet she did an ERC, employment retention. There's all this scam going on. The ERC, the employee retention credit. I mean, so I even get emails too. I get letters in the mail. We talking. It's like, I've had clients that they don't realize it. And I've had clients go to the criminal division of the tax, and I've gotten them out of it.
Wow.
Okay, thank God they had a lawyer, right?
Right.
Because sometimes they're being scammed, and clients don't know what they sign. I went to this person because they know for. Who's this person? Is it an accountant? A CPA? Somebody your friend recommended because they got a lot of money back for you. Yeah, they fell out. It's a felony. You signed a return claiming, a $34,000 credit on employees that you don't even have a business, right? So they're charging it back to you, and you'll be lucky that they keep you out of the criminal division. So it's not a fraudulent IRS claim. It's all the money. So you got to amend your returns too, to be clean. And she got scammed. I get it. A lot of people are getting scammed on that, right? But who got the money, right? If you got the money, it's one thing. I had one guy actually he didn't get the money, and we proved it, and they took him out of the criminal. Another guy was in the criminal one, but they just believe what you want to hear. I have a client that was a bankruptcy, and then she came in a month ago for her husband. The IRS says they owe money, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh my God, come on, yes, you owe the money. You went to this one person to do his returns because someone is a typical. I said right away, I bet it's ERC, and it was. And they said, well, no, I don't think the person was really good. No, the person was a con person. Where's the person now? Vanished. Okay, right, gotcha, right. And I don't think the IRS could do that. Oh, really? Or the people tell me, the employer, they're fraudulently, because it's their fault. They didn't take enough money out of his paycheck. Okay, it's called you're doing your own exemptions, and that's fine. Too many people do over exemptions, and I get a big refund. All you're doing is giving the IRS, the government, a interest-free loan all year long, and they give it back to you at the end of the year. I mean, if you got a $6,000 refund, well, why don't you do your exemptions properly and get $500 more a month on your check? Cash flow, would that help you better? Probably, right? So, but it's not the employer didn't take enough out. You tell them what to take out, but everyone's blaming everybody else. And I'm not saying, like the banks, we do litigation. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of things going wrong out there, right? But it's not always even the banks, they do a lot of bad stuff, you know what I'm saying? But then I have clients getting screwed, and we work it out, we defend them. But I have people calling and just making things up, and it's like, no, they're allowed to do certain things. Someone called yesterday. It's a client of mine, actually. It's a confirmed case. They're charging me this. I said they could charge you what's in the mortgage. What fees for late fees are written in there, and it was. So it's like it's legitimate. You can't just say you don't think it's right. Okay, well, I mean,
right.
It's in the agreement. It's not outrageous. You know what I'm saying? I can only do so much. You know what I'm saying? So, and by the way, that was like $1,700.
Hey, Kevin,
we paid the plan anyway. It's like over 60 months. So like, I don't even know what she's been worried about. The $10 a month. But
we got a great question in from Norman in Champaign. He wants to know, he said, I probably have the money to retain your services, but I do not have the money to repay the IRS. What would happen to me if I can't pay them?
Well, call me, because that's a pretty general question, and I need facts, because that's not uncommon. Okay, I mean, the owe 10 grand, you owe $1 million. You know what I'm saying? And I have people saying, I owe 2-3 million. How am I going to pay? You're not. You know what I'm saying? That could be an offer in compromise to the settlement. You know what I'm saying? Or it could be
at least he wants to pay your fees.
It could be currently non-collectible, or it could be a partial pay installment, or it could be, a low payment. People don't understand. Sometimes you get a low payment with the IRS and you can't afford it, right? Or offer in compromise is a settlement. So you're basically getting a discount. So that's how you do it, okay? Because even if you're
So
doing
you can't help those people.
of course, I can help everybody. It's a matter of, does the resolution, help you, right? It will, but people have their own, sometimes, not this person who's talking, I'm talking in general. And I can tell when I'm on the phone with somebody, when they're thinking they're so smart and, if they're hiding something or, they're going to get a sweet deal or, again, I don't work, okay, maybe you don't, I'm saying, but just because you're not working on purpose just to, and you have equity in your house, doesn't mean it's all going to go away. Also, with that person who called, you have my number, 312-853-3100, benjaminlaw.com, or if you're familiar with Calendly, calendly.com/Kevin Benjamin, get them right on my calendar, that way. But either way, you could go on the website and put your name in or call me or email me from there. It's a free consultation because.
And, I want people to know, Kevin, we don't talk about this a lot. I don't know why, but you also handle businesses, not just individuals.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was doing all morning. I started a Chapter 11 in Wisconsin. Have one going in Iowa, some in Chicago. I'm licensed in state of Wisconsin, state of Illinois and Florida, but I'm licensed in many federal jurisdictions, where you do cases, and plus the U.S. tax court, and Supreme Court, by the way. But I've never had a Supreme Court case. Probably never will. But I am licensed before the U.S. Supreme Court as well.
We get these questions in. We get these questions in, Kevin, and hey, we appreciate your questions. But Kevin, most of the time needs a lot more information. Like this gentleman here is saying, I'm retired. I'm on a fixed income. I just got my first letter from the IRS. I do not have the money to pay them. What do I do?
Well, you call me.
You must get a lot of.
Of course, you don't have the money.
You must get a lot of those.
Yeah, nobody has the money to pay them, because they've been pretty aggressive this year, the IRS, with the letters and the levies and the liens. So the IRS is not your friend. They're my friend because they're coming after everybody and they get all these letters to people.
Your friend.
They need help. I guess it's a joke. But there's different ways to resolve issues. Okay, that's what you're calling a professional for. So give me a call, and if you can't afford it to pay the IRS, then you're going to show me. And maybe it's an offer in compromise or a small pay partial installment. Maybe it's a bankruptcy. Maybe it's Chapter 13. It could be all kinds of different things. I got one lady called me, chose $260,000 or $240,060 to the state of Illinois.
Wow.
I could resolve it, but thing was, this was an example, right? Okay, she got $200,000 or $300,000 equity in her house. Then I'm talking to her again. Oh, you got a property in Chicago paid for, commercial property. I'm like, you're not getting a discount. What, are you kidding me? And right. About to levy her stuff and do stuff. So, I said, no problem. File Chapter 13. They can't levy her. She's actually, you could refinance some of the property. You could, or not. You paid over 5 years or refinance it or sell it. But I got a court order. They can't take her property. They can't put levies and liens on her. And she's good. And I just talked to her the other day. Now she's not one of the tenants may want to buy it or give her some cash up front. I said, you can get the cash up front and make a down payment and it's just pay over time. You don't need to even give all the money. You can sell it, not even give all the money. You could keep the money. I get a court order approving it and just keep making the payments over the 5 years or pay part of it, however you want to do it. But the bottom line is she has peace of mind now. You know what I'm saying? Because she knows that the case is filed, the automatic stays in effect, and they can't do anything. So when I talk to her, it goes a lot better than it was before that, because she was all just, it's frantic, they're getting letters and calls from the IRS or letters and, getting advice from people and, don't do this, don't do that. And I just told her the facts, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't going to take her money for a resolution when she has a couple $100,000 equity that she thinks that she's entitled to keep without the IRS or state of Illinois, making them wait. That wasn't going to happen. However, it is happening though, because I got a court order. But without that, it wasn't going to happen.
Kevin, at the beginning of the show, you said something that I hope people will remember. You can just about help anybody.
Yeah.
You really can. I mean, nothing's 100%, but just about you can, no matter what the case is, you can just about help anybody. And I'm telling you, folks, you don't want to try do this yourself, especially when you have someone out there like Kevin. Kevin, give everybody your phone number and your website address again.
Kevin Benjamin, 312-853-3100. That's 312-853-3100. 3100, sorry. BenjaminLaw.com or NobleTaxRelief.com. Either one gets me. Give me a call.
Kevin's going to be with us again next month, and we run partial, but actually we'll be running the entire show again next week. We didn't get to the bankruptcy, so we'll just run the whole show next week. Kevin, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. You have a nice weekend as well. Thank you.
That's attorney Kevin Benjamin. Hey, if you've got a bankruptcy problem or a tax relief problem, give him a call. I'm telling you, he's been with us for 2 years. Nothing but good things said about him. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our great producer, Juan. Hey, we'll see you next Friday with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.